I met with a couple of our civilian enforcement officers this morning, actually, in preparation for this discussion, and they said that actually their experience is that there is some work that's currently done by the criminal courts, by private bailiffs. That's only because the Ministry of Justice under this government have driven down resources for the justice system and for the criminal courts. So there just aren't
a pattern here.
Yeah, so there just aren't enough of them. So they've been forced to give work to private bailiff companies. Our civilian enforcement officers say the work that they're given is quite often not done, it's not completed, so it comes back to the court, and the court staff who work in the administration of the fines, so on the telephone, on the text, chasing the fines, or the civilian enforcement officers that do phone and also do door knocking, the work goes back to them and they have to do it because these private companies are not up to doing it. But also they themselves say there are horror stories with the private bailiff companies that the courts currently use, where they, for example, just go for, they'll go for the easy stuff, the soft touch stuff. So
like what? Explain what that is.
A single mum who has stolen food from a supermarket and because she can't afford to feed her kids in austerity Britain. So they'd go after somebody like that rather than go after a hardened criminal, for example, who's been given a fine by the court rather than being given a prison sentence. And it's much more difficult to get a fine off of a hardened criminal. And what we think as a union is actually the privatisation of this civilian enforcement function could cost the public sector more money.
Why?
You'll end up having to involve police officers to go after the hardened criminals and their fines, and also there'll be more committal to prisons because you'll have bailiffs going after the soft stuff and not after the hardened criminals. They won't pay their fines and then they'll be committed to prison, and at that point you would have to involve the police service and you would have to involve the prison service. If this does go out to tender and if they do privatise it and one of these big bailiff companies get a hold of it, the way that private bailiff companies will make money out of this contract is payment by results, chasing as many soft fines as they can, and then adding as much, and leaving the hard stuff, leaving the bigger stuff.
Actually, leaving the bigger stuff to the state to deal with.